of teaching you the commercial participants that are in the commercial process life cycle of borrowers and clients. So there are different types of borrowers that you're going to run into, but I'm just going to give you a bit of a broad brush of how people actually move forward or the types of people that you're going to run into. The first one is generally just individuals. So these are people that are trying to borrow funds that don't really deal with any legal business entities. So it's just a sole prop. Sometimes you'll hear that. Typically, these are smaller businesses or smaller investors that you're going to be working with. They just don't form an entity. That's not ideal just because of the risk that's associated with it. But it is important to understand that some people just choose to proceed as an individual and not set up an LLC as a borrower. So there's risks that are associated with that that we can chat about where, if somebody owns title to a property and they get sued, then they can go back to the individual versus just the limited liability company. So there, you are dealing with individuals. There are times where they'll say, who's going to personally guarantee it? Those are individuals. Those are warm bodies, as they'll call them at times, who are the ones who will sign the actual loan documents or sign what they consider carve-outs in a non-recourse situation where they will be the ones who will guarantee under the pretense that there is a guarantee that comes into action. So just know that individuals are a part of that. You'll be dealing obviously with an individual, but we're speaking specifically about when it comes to taking title and the types that you're going to be working with. Small businesses, we generally say these are mom and pop. They can be larger, but the type of operation that could be a multi-million-dollar business. They're generally more sophisticated. These might have an LLC that they set up to take title, which is a limited liability corporation that's set up in your local jurisdiction. And they might be acquiring something, refinancing, etc., for business purposes or investment. And so small businesses we work with a lot. They, again, will own properties with the intention of occupying their business out of that location at least 51% of the location. So if there's a 10,000 square foot building, you want them to have just a shy over 5,000. That's a general rule of thumb to consider it an owner-occupied small business transaction. The third type is just investors. So these are, the borrower typically is going to, again, take title under an LLC, could be a corporation, could be a limited liability partnership. They're the ones, this LLC is typically the one that is borrowing the money. They will more than likely have to sign personally to some degree, although we do have non-recourse loans. They're driven to their future return of the investment. These are generally seasoned investors, although they don't have to be, that you're going to be working with as well in a transaction. Developers, again, this is a different category. These are, by the way, investors are typically buying existing properties, generally speaking, not all the time. But developer are, again, investors that are purchasing real estate with the intent of making specific improvements. So it could be that they're buying a building to completely renovate it that's already existing to try to sell for a profit. Or they could be just going completely vertical on a new project. And these types of loans are among the most difficult to procure just because of the lack of uniformity. So they have a lot of complexity. There's going to be debt and equity involved, and any excess time that it takes to find the money. So these are more complicated. There's more moving parts because you're typically going through entitlements to get the property zoned and approved. It's a lengthier process. Generally, they're larger by nature, but these are more sophisticated parties that you will be running into. The mortgage loans for the investors are typically, again, large loans, and they're likely very profitable. So you just have to be real selective with these because they take a lot of time. Commercial brokers are a final one we'll talk about, just that are part of this. They're sales professionals who represent the buyers and the sellers in the pursuit to sell their commercial property. So these are people that generally are doing sales, although they do leasing as well, but are going out, meeting with owners, trying to represent them like a real estate agent would with a home, to list it, to sell it, and make a profit with these. These are men and women that are very motivated. They are very focused. They like travel, golf, recreation, concerts, entertainment, etc. So there's a lot of success. These are people that you would enjoy working with, and we would highly recommend pursuing them as well. So again, this is the individuals that you're typically on the borrowing side going to be working with on buying or refinancing or developing